Hello everyone, it's Brian again, obviously not in my basement. We are still on the move as the renovation occurs. So we're in our last place that we're staying outside of the house, and we should move in or back into the house at the end of June if everything is on track. So this has made it difficult for me to make videos because in the basement of the house, which I still have access to, the records are covered in tarps, so it's hard to dig out things for like anything complicated. But I went back and got two things I need to make the video today, which is, as you'll note from the title, another John Cale video, part 11. Theoretically, this could be part 12 because 2 videos ago I did a response for Mike at MGK Boston who challenged certain channels to make a video, and my challenge was to present a video on my 5 favorite John Cale records, which I did, noting that maybe that will change in the future, but I think I'm pretty confident in those. So I'm going to call this part 11 anyway, even though it's possibly part 12. Now, I realized that the last John Cale video I made was, apart from the mic one, was 7 months ago. So it's been a while. So I think it's about time. I mean, I guess I paused because there was a lot of John Cale information and then the reno is happening. But today we are moving ahead with his live record from 1979 called Sabotage/Live. Recorded at CBGB, New York City in June of 1979. And I don't think I can go any further in this video without reflecting on this album cover because it is bleak, it is stark, and possibly a bit depressing. As you can see, it is a photographic negative rather than a positive, and the only color being the lettering down here. Otherwise, it's black and white, high contrast, really stark, bleak image of John Cale, I guess in an overcoat with gloves, at a microphone with sunglasses and a hard hat. And most alarmingly, we have this mushroom cloud here, which I guess is a nuclear explosion. I mean, I guess other explosions could lead to a mushroom cloud, but I think it's evident it's a nuclear explosion. Here's the back, John in that funny color from the front, I guess, with a hard hat and sunglasses. It's on Spy Records, which is seems to be a part of A&M because we have A&M and IRS on the back anyway. So there are 9 tracks here. 8 are John Cale originals. Let me show you here's the A&M sleeve and try not to show it upside down again, the A&M labels for this. So right, John Cale, Sabotage. Now I will show you the compact disc for a couple of reasons. This particular version, there may be others, was released in 1999, so 20 years on. I don't think it was marketed as an anniversary edition, but you'll see they made a couple of changes. The image is cropped, so you don't see the full mushroom cloud, which I think is a mistake because that is an important element of this cover, and they crop it out almost, or at least they truncate it a bit. And then Live is in brackets. Here's the reverse with a different image. This is the disc itself, and then it comes with this insert, which is really useful because there's a brief essay here by Richard Thomas from March of 1999 in which he discusses the album in a bit of detail, like where it comes from, what he was doing, that kind of thing. And the other thing about this CD that's interesting is that it contains bonus tracks. So after the final live track, it contains the 3 tracks that were on the Animal Justice EP, and another bonus track called Rose Garden Funeral of Sores, which is a final bonus track. Now that particular track appeared as the B-side to the first or the only single from this record, which was Mercenaries Ready for War. Rose Garden Funeral of Sores was the B-side of that record. That song is perhaps more well-known as a Bauhaus song because, that's Peter Murphy's former goth band. They recorded the version of that, made a video for it, as I believe. I think I had the VHS tape for that. And I think some people believe that Bauhaus wrote it, but it's actually a John Cale track. And it's probably the more famous version. It is one of the stranger John Cale songs. I find it kind of perplexing. It comes up later. It appears on a compilation, of course. But anyway, I think it's interesting that they included those 4 tracks here. So the absolute thing you must know about this record is that, yes, it's a live record, but unusually, none of these tracks were ever released in studio versions on any previous John Cale record. So if you bought this record, you'd be looking at the track listing and thinking, I don't know what any of these tracks are. You might recognize the cover version, and they're live, which is a little strange. I know other artists have done this, but it is a little maybe unusual to do this. these are songs that he played live quite frequently from the Helen of Troy tour and I think onwards. So by 1979, he committed it to this vinyl pressing. Now, with respect to what John is wearing in his persona here, I think I've mentioned before that in certain times, like when he was performing in this era, he would wear sometimes a hockey's goalie mask or a surgical mask. So it fit his sort of menacing onstage persona, I guess you would say. You know, there was that famous incident I referenced in a few videos ago about how he decapitated an already dead chicken and threw the head into the audience. So he was presenting I guess a version of himself that was kind of unhinged in a way, demented maybe. So that's sort of what we're getting here. But more than that, this cover seems to reflect his anxiety or paranoia around war, nuclear war, the Cold War, aspects of militarism, including Mercenaries, which is the first track. So there seems to be that sort of theme running through the record. It's also worth noting that John Cale was heavily involved in drugs at this point, of course, cocaine being his drug of choice. So there's that element as well. This is a really raw record. I find it riveting, but it is really on the fringes of being a little too raw, maybe. I read a comment somewhere, someone referred to this record as being controlled chaos, which honestly is a perfect description of this record. It is, it's noisy, it's bombastic, it's kind of aggressive, but not always aggressive. So it's a really interesting record. One other thing to keep in mind about John Cale at this point in time is that he became known as a record producer, not always successfully, but he did produce Patti Smith, for example, the Stooges, some other bands, some more successful than others. And one of the reasons why he was attractive as a producer, and this comes from what I read about the Stooges, is that they wanted to find someone who could take a really raw, noisy sound and make it sound okay on vinyl, as he did with the Velvet Underground. So he seemed to be the guy to go to if you wanted to take the sound that the Stooges had live and somehow make it work on vinyl. So that's one of the reasons why he became of interest to some people. So he recorded a wide range, or produced a wide range of individuals. So really interesting information about the time period here. So interesting guy. I still find it amazing that he's known. People know about the Velvet Underground, but very few people seem to know about his solo career, which is incredible because he had such a varied and long output, and he's still making records. So anyway, this record has a rough side. It has maybe a punk rock aesthetic, but I wouldn't call it punk. But I can see how you'd fit it into that sort of genre in a way, but I don't think it qualifies as punk. So anyway, interesting record. I just made a note of the NME comment, New Musical Express. They say, what it lacks in finesse, they make up for with the remorseless drive that equally befits Cale's cold-blooded, gut-churning music of fear, right? So that sort of sums it up. I mean, that seems to be what he's going for, the dogs of war kind of thing. And I think it works really well. I'm going to talk about the tracks. Now, I usually put clips of tracks in. We'll see if I put them all in or not. I might put a couple in. Sometimes YouTube does funny things with songs, but let's start with the first track called Mercenaries, brackets, Ready for War, 7.5 minutes. And as I mentioned, it was released on 7-inch single, but the 7-inch single version and this one differ because apparently the master tapes were lost for the 7-inch version. So there's a different version here. It really sets the tone for the record. If there's any song here that would introduce the record, that is it. Just the whole mercenary concept, the Ready for War concept. And it starts with this spoken word statement from John Cale that says, mercenaries are useless, disunited, unfaithful. They have nothing more to keep them in a battle other than a meager wage, which is just enough to make them want to kill for you, but not enough to make them want to die for you. And I think that sounds quite right? That sounds like it's on par, on brand there for Mercenaries. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know any Mercenaries. It's a really good track though. It has that refrain, Ready for War, which he sings. It's cool. I mean, I think it's a really good introduction to the record.
Mercenaries are useless, disunited, unfaithful. They have nothing more to keep them in a battle other than a meager wage, which is just about enough to make them want to kill for you, but not enough to make them want to die for you. looking for work, looking for war. My rifle is my friend. My rifle is my friend.
So then we have a track called Baby You Know, which I can only really describe as a propulsive rock song. I think is really interesting. It's engaging. You know, I'm not going to do like a lyrical analysis here, but it's a good track. Evidence. I think that's a fabulous song. I think that's rises to the top half of the songs here on the record. One of the best tracks on the record is probably Dr. Mudd. It'd vie for first or second, third place. I think it's really a good record. Seems to be about nuclear bombs dropping in Japan. You know, all of this is up for debate because John Cale's lyrics are sometimes impenetrable and sometimes you can take it more than one way, but that seems to be something, it's a highlight of the record. The fifth track on side A, the last track on side A, is called Walking the Dog, which is a Rufus Thomas track from 1963, which has been covered many, many, many times. I think you might know that Aerosmith covered it, the Rolling Stones, Mitch Ryder, Dr. Fielded. I think last I checked, there were like 30 or 35 cover versions of the songs. And I think John Cale's version is actually pretty good. Now, oddly, many of these songs don't seem to appear in John Cale's later recordings, except for Walking the Dog and Mercenaries. Those two he has performed. They appear on, for example, a live album called Circus. So that has happened. But the rest of them seem to have been lost in time, and you don't really hear of them. And I don't know of any examples. Well, maybe I'll have to check that. But they don't seem to be things he carried through. He kind of left them behind, it seems, for some reason. You know, in some respects, I would have appreciated studio recordings of these songs at the time. Like, it would have been great if he went into the studio and made studio recordings, but he didn't. So that's kind of interesting. Side 2 opens with Captain Hook, an 11 minute and 26 second song, which would probably qualify as his longest rock song. He may have other pieces that are longer in terms of his soundtrack work and stuff, but that's definitely his longest pop or rock song. It has a very, very long introduction, and the question you're left with is, what is this song about? And some people will say something like it's about the decline of British imperialism, the decline in India specifically. It's about that. Or other people will say, no, it's really about heroin, which doesn't seem like it's too far off the mark. I don't really know, but I will read a couple of lyrics. By the way, I think Captain Hook might be the best track on the album. It says, I lost my memory today, the day my ship set sail, Atlantic seaboard east to India. There's the India component. The Seven Seas East India Company, past the Cape of Good Hope, but there's no hope for me. And later he sings, tried to break India's back, but she broke the back of me. So maybe this anti-colonialism thing, or the decline of colonialism, is right. It was a painful sight, at least to me. I see the ghost is riding out, the ghost of India supreme. Under the seven seas, I hear they're galloping. So I guess you can take that for what it's worth. I don't know. You have to maybe make that decision. Perhaps the most surprising track on here is Only Time Will Tell. It's only 2 minutes and 37 seconds, and it is sung by someone else. By the way, I didn't tell you who's on this record. John Cale, of course, on vocals, piano, guitar, fretless bass, and viola. Mark Aaron, lead guitar. Joe Bidewell, guitar and vocals. George Scott, bass and vocals, and Doug Bound, drums and vocals. And one other person, her name is Dear France, appears as percussion and vocals, and she is the person who sings the lead on Only Time Will Tell. The first time I heard it, I was thinking that she was singing an introduction and Cale would come in, but she sings the entire song. She does it very well. She has a really great voice. She was one of Cale's backup vocalists from 78, I think, to 1981. So he employed her on this record. And she has sung on many artist records. If you look her up, you'll see that she appears many, many places, but I think she may only have one proper album or maybe it's a comp, I don't know, something credited to her on Discogs, but otherwise she is known as, I guess, a new wavy kind of backup singer. So I don't really know much about her, and I don't know what her real name is, but she's credited as Dear France as one word. And that is a beautiful song. Kind of sounds really unlike the other songs on the record. It's very peaceful. It's a really nice song. It's really, really great.
Only time will tell if any mischief in our heart can cause the damage done and put it right. Only time will tell if the songs are in their places, safe from undiscovered parts of
Then we have the title track, Sabotage. And again, you know, I'm not really always great at deciphering lyrics, but I will read a couple from this one. He sings, "Read and destroy everything that you read in the press. Read and destroy everything that you read in books. It's a waste of time, it's a waste of energy, it's a waste of paper, and it's a waste of ink. Whatever you read in books, leave it there." So I don't know what he's getting at here, but it seems very heartfelt in any way, in any case. And then it wraps up with a song called Choral, Chorale, which sounds somewhat funereal to me because he sings, and the code of the living and the code of the dead is kind of repeated. And I don't know whether it is those phrases in particular or whether it's the sound of the song, but it just seems like something you'd play at a funeral. Who knows if you would or not, but all in all, a strange record. One cover version, 8 originals that never had a studio appearance on any previous Cale record, which is kind of funny. Now, at the end of each of these, I try to give you my rating on it, whether it's essential, recommended, optional, or not recommended. And this one is curious because I would say it's recommended. And the reason I'd say it's recommended is, well, firstly, at this point, by 1979, there really wasn't that much live John Cale to hear. He did that record with Kevin Ayers and Brian Eno and Nico called June 1st, 1974, and John Cale sings on that record, so you can hear live John Cale on that record. As far as I know, the only official live Velvet Underground recording came in the 1990s reunification tour, where they went to Europe and performed there. I don't think there's a live Velvet Underground recording with John Cale that's official. I don't think. So if you want to hear John Cale live, especially in this period, you'd only have the 1974 record and you have this. So that would be a reason to hear it. Also, these songs are kind of lost to time. Apart from 2 appear on a later live record, Mercenaries and Walking the Dog appear on Circus Live, different versions, of course. But these tracks you're never going to find anywhere else. Like for me, I always reflect on the album Fragments of a Rainy Season, which we haven't got to yet, where he reinterprets some of his old songs on a solo piano or acoustic guitar, but none of these were good enough or maybe important enough to him to make the cut. So they've been kind of lost. So it's interesting in that respect. The CD might be a better bet if you want the Animal Justice EP, but this is definitely worth hearing. I would say it's recommended. I'm not going to say it's essential because it's not quite there, but it does remind me of the Island Years trilogy. There's something about these songs that harkens back to those 3 records from 74 and 1975, which I think is, if you appreciate those records, you might appreciate this one. I'd say one of the most interesting record covers in my collection, and a really interesting record. I overused the word interesting today, but thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.